I'm at that stage in my career where I don't want to do another project unless I design it and fabricate it and finish it, install it, or at least have my guys do the installation.
Welcome to All Things Wood Floor, episode 18, brought to you by Wood Floor Business, the podcast for wood floor experts. Great to have you back. You all know why we're here, and that is to become wood floor brilliant. So let's get moving. Today, I have the honor and privilege of speaking with one of the most award-winning wood floor pros ever, Mr. Chuck Crispin of Legendary Floors. Chuck's worked with wood flooring legends such as Allan, Pyne, and Birger Juell, and he's going to share some of that amazing history with us right here today. We're going to rack out Chuck's rules of good wood flooring design and learn what it's like to achieve high levels of success while managing the pitfalls of working on luxury wood floor projects. Learn what an amazing career Chuck left before he became a wood flooring legend, and stick around if you don't know what cookies and twigs floors are, because he's going to teach us that one too. All that and more here today for your home of the wood floor professional, All Things Wood Floor. A big ATWF welcome for our special guest, Mr. Chuck Crispin of Legendary Floors. Wood floor pros around the world, let's get to it. Can you hear me there, Chuck?
I can, Steve. How are you?
I'm doing, hey, welcome. I've been dying to meet you. Here we are. Was your first company Hardwood Renovations in like the 80s?
That's correct.
Okay, yep. Then I got that right. Terre Haute. I love it. What was Hardwood Renovations? Was that when you started?
Yeah, we started, that was when we originally just started sanding and finishing floors for a living. And we were learning how.
What dragged you into that? You seem like a pretty educated guy. I get a lot of these guys that get somehow dragged into flooring and then we don't leave.
Yeah, that's right. It's a vacuum.
I know, but once you get behind a machine, there's really no leaving. But are you from that area?
I was born in Tuscola, Illinois.
Oh,
so kind of 150 miles from Terre Haute, Indiana.
Gotcha.
And we bounced around, ended up living in St. Louis for a couple of grades, and then moved to Terre Haute, Indiana in fourth grade. So went to high school there, then went to college at Northwestern University. My oldest daughter was born in 1978, so I started a little company called Crispin Woodworking and Interiors, and basically I did anything anybody would pay me $10 an hour. Started Hardwood Renovations in 1984, and in 1994 started calling myself Legendary Hardwood Floors.
How do you jump from the mundane, not the mundane, but doing the install, sand, finish, the usual stuff? How do you jump into that and get to where Legendary became an idea?
Well, I decided it was time to let it be an artistic outlet. After, basically learning the basics for 10 years. And it was, sanding floors was a comfortable living. But I got really lucky in 1989 and did a floor with Allan Pyne, who was, then the grand champion design guy in the national wood flooring industry. He was from Brookfield, Wisconsin, Milwaukee area. And I got lucky enough to work with him on a project in Terre Haute and learned more in 6 days than I had in the preceding 6 years. So I worked on his projects, and then I copied what he showed me how to do, make an 8-point star, and started, pumping those things out in my basement and figuring out places to put them and persuading people to, put up with my nonsense. And gradually it took off, and we began getting the opportunity to design and bid some pretty sophisticated projects. Sure. And in 1992, I believe I won my first Floor of the Year award. And that was for Floor in Terre Haute.
Amazing.
Indiana.
Well, you were in good company there. What was the tie-in between Allan Pyne and Birger Juell? There was a relationship there too, right? And did you know both those gentlemen?
Well, since they're both, in kind of the same part of the country, they're within 100 miles of each other. They knew each other. They knew each other through National Wood Flooring Association, and every once in a while they would bid on jobs against each other. I think The Milwaukee Grain Exchange was one that Birger bid on, and Allan got. And that was one of Allan's more significant projects.
This is where the artistic part of flooring comes in. There's so many facets to flooring. Can you tell me a little bit about each of those guys? Because I don't think people understand the pioneering that they did and you did. Give me a little bit on both Birger and on Allan, and tell me just a little bit about what they did and how that all came together.
Well, Allan started doing wood floors in New York City after getting out of the Army in the 40s. And, he would tell these stories about packing, 300 pounds of lumber up 30 flights of stairs and banging in, so many 500 square feet of flooring a day. It's like, what?
Yeah, with cut nails and a hatchet.
Did you put any nails in it?
There's a difference between what you do. Like there's parquetry and there's marquetry and there's hardwood flooring. And a lot of people, when I show them your work or other people in an artistic level, they always say, who's your distributor? Where do they buy their flooring? And I usually say, they don't buy flooring. They bring in wood and shape it into flooring.
Yeah, these days I don't like to buy from anybody but little wood miser guys. Sure. And, start with that stuff because production lumber is such poor quality these days. Yeah. The trees are really, really small and the grain patterns are not as interesting. So that's my current MO. And Birger did quite a bit of that as well. You have your
own style and type. Though, did you study art? And is that your back?
Yeah, I took a few art classes in college. I didn't, I did some painting stuff and this and that, but it wasn't I majored in philosophy and minored in the classics. So.
When you look at floors of the year, and you got a bunch, I'll tell you later my favorites, but the word timeless comes up. They never get stale. Do you feel is that a goal for you?
Yeah, I feel like I've grown a lot since that first floor that we did. But the industry as a whole has made tremendous leaps and bounds. When that floor was built, there wasn't really a system for routing scallops, those ellipses. So we had to kind of make that up and shop around and find the kinds of tools. I think back then there was only like a 1-inch top bearing router bit. So we had to make a really thick template in order to be able to and take little chunks and go a little bit at a time. Now the tooling's really makes it much easier.
And then do you sketch everything first? I mean, you obviously have to go over it with a client and decide what is it. Do they come to you with like a rendering and say, this is what we're thinking? Or do you go in and say, this is the image I have for what we could do here?
Yeah. Some people bring, design ideas. One of my early customers had a very interesting coffee table in their living room with marquetry that basically there was a very intricate floral pattern that wove around the outside of the room and then some splashy things in the corners. And so we ended up doing that as using that as the inspiration for the pattern that became the border for their room. So that was a lot of fun.
What kind of time frame does it take to, like, let's say, give me an idea, a 1,000-foot room. How long does something take like that in custom woodworking? Like a floor of the year type setup. How does something that intricate take?
Months.
Yeah, right. Correct.
Months. Yeah. There's a lot of time going back and forth with the design. There's a lot of time selecting materials and getting them approved, getting finishes approved. So the spin up, the developmental process can take months. I am working on a project now that we've been wrestling with it for 4 years, okay. And the design's not approved yet. So, sometimes it's just, it depends on the client. Some people know exactly what they want right away and easy pie. But other people are a little more difficult, either because they're indecisive or because they're very, very, very particular.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, I can imagine. Are they always particularly super high-end clientele? Is that pretty much where it's all going, these type of floors?
Yeah. Usually extremely high-end homes.
Do you ever get to visit these when you're done with that? Seemed to me like be my children. I'd like to visit them every now and then.
Well, as a matter of fact, since joining Birger Juell in the year 2000, I have abandoned the polyurethanes. We've been just using natural oil and wax finishes for 22 years now. So I spread tons of semi-gloss polyurethane in my day between 1984 and the year 2000, but I strongly prefer wax, and because wax needs to be maintained every once in a while, we get to revisit a lot of our favorite projects. So that's very gratifying, especially when they're well kept.
The look of that type of floor is different than basically a polyurethane is plastic. It's a whole different look.
Yeah. Well, polyurethane scratches. Wax floors, if they get scratched, they're really scratched. But Birger's aesthetic, I've adopted completely. Basically, it's hand scraped. I can't tell you when the last time I sanded a floor was, but a long time ago. And we really enjoy that aesthetic. I think that, it's a subtle, very elegant finish that is not difficult. It's not difficult to maintain unless you insist on mopping it.
Yeah, right. That doesn't help anybody. I wonder if you can explain it for me, because for those, because it's a podcast, jump online and take a look at your work. It's all over. It's just all you have to do is Google your name or jump on Wood Floor Business Magazine. I don't know how to explain it. Maybe you can explain it to me. But when I looked at the Birger Juell work, your work, Allan Pyne's work, especially yours and Birger's, it's like you said, hand scraped. It's like, I work in 200-year-old houses up here in New England, and sometimes older, sometimes younger. And some of the wood has been so worn down just by human traffic, and you don't want to sand that. You want to leave that. The only way to do that is get down with your hands and knees or scraper and contour that. Some of the work I saw you do, it almost, I don't know how to explain it. It looked like a river had run through the floor, or you know what is that look? It's not just hand scraping. It's very smooth and contoured and plush looking.
Well, I think a lot of it is selection of, the selection of woods, like the woods that we recently selected for a house in Chelsea, Michigan, had a whole lot of crotch figure in it.
Okay.
And so, especially in the medallions, the stars, and I think there's a 16-point star at the ends, both ends of a 100-foot hallway, and then a 6-foot diameter star, round star at the bottom of 20 points, I think, at the bottom of a 3-story staircase. So both of those are nice eye candy.
So how long did you work with Birger Juell?
I worked with Birger from the year 2000 until the end of 2011. Mm-hmm. Birger passed away in 2010.
Yeah.
So we kept the company open for another 14 months and just sorted out how we were going to close it, basically. At one point in time, Birger, in the 60s, Birger started out as the suburban floor sanding king. And he had a truck with a generator on it, and he would go out before, as soon as the roof was on, and and bang in strip flooring. And he had all kinds of trucks and all kinds of business. And when the crash of 1968 took all the builders down, the builders took Birger down, and he had to start all over again.
No.
So he did a variety of different things, but he and Ann operated an antique store. Mm-hmm. and they refurbished nice old furniture, and he did floors on kind of on the side, and I think he began at that point in early 70s, he began to teach himself how to do more interesting, sophisticated things. Hand scraping didn't become a thing for his company until probably the mid 80s. But by the time I got there in the year 2000, they were the best in the business. And they really, because he was commanding a few more dollars for what he was doing than what other people were doing, a lot of people paid attention to that and began to try to copy what he was doing. And Birger and one guy on the West Coast were the two great popularizers of textured floors. Now you see everything under the sun, from chainsaw marks to everything under the sun. They've kind of taken that past elegant limits. Asha Khan son gu, as they say in French, and I just murdered that, I'm sure. Everybody has its own taste.
Somewhere about there, then you're probably back to just legendary floors. But I got a little confused online. I know it's Florida, but were you running Florida and Chicago, or you moved them around from one place to another?
Well, I actually continued living in Chicago until about 2015. Spent a lot more time down in Florida after 2015. But we moved out of, at one point in time, we had 54 employees, 30,000 square foot production facility, lots of guys scraping lots and lots and lots of boards. So we moved out of that place in 2013 into a smaller place and stayed in the smaller place for about a year and a half. And, by then with wanting to spend more time in Florida, it just wasn't working for me. So I loaded up a big truck and moved as much as I could get my hands on down here. And,
is the material hand scraped and designed and made in a shop and brought to the site, or it's done on site?
No, usually we scrape in the shop. Oh. And Birger's technique was to scrape on the bench. And there are other guys now that are doing a lot of on-site scraping. Mm-hmm. And we just finished, doing that at the Swope Art Museum. But it's usually pretty rare. I mean, it's really hard to be down on your hands and knees for days on end in that position. That's just... those stringy guys. Yeah. My hat's off to them, but that wine bottle is there for a reason.
Yeah, exactly. That ain't paint thinner, my friend. That's painkiller. When you're on the bench and you're scraping, and I'm sure there's a lot of different tools. What's the intention per piece? Is it to take out the spring wood? What are you doing? What's the goal when okay, I'm done with this piece. Let's move on.
Well, depending on the projects, there are projects that require a look like the horse rode in on it. But most of our stuff is, we just want to make it look 200 years old and very well cared for. Usually when I have full say over how much bevel and all that kind of stuff, we go for just a light medium bevel, just to kind of disguise the movement of the floor in the wintertime.
Sure.
And to give it a little pop. And with a medium scrape, not too heavy. Enough to see it, but, just basically follow the grain of the wood and make it look very, very organically worn.
When you're assembling these pieces or you're getting ready to assemble them, is there... do you address anything to the placement of the actual grain? And I've seen floors in Rhode Island at the breakers in these mansions, and you come down the grand staircase and they're bright golden. And as you turn, it's almost like somebody brushed a carpet. The other side of the room, they look golden brown. And I couldn't figure out, did the craftsman turn the grain in a certain direction, or is the floor just doing this? Is there any forethought to where's the graining going? What direction is it going?
Well, we plan all that, very, very carefully, but there is a phenomenon called luminescence, which is basically the light striking the grain from different directions will make one, adjacent boards appear lighter or darker than each other. So that's a common pest to the usual floor guy, because the floor guy knows that he only put one color on the whole floor, but there's that occasional customer who will come in and say, I don't want that contrast between light and dark.
Right. Well, go stand on the other side of the living room. You'll be fine.
Floor. Yeah. And it's like, I'm sorry, but stand over here.
Well, you just threw your French out there.
Stand over here.
I'll have people come in and say, hey, look at these beautiful maple floors. And I'll say, well, see those boards? That's chatoyance. And that's a birch floor. And that's the only place you're going to find it. And it's that shimmer that pops out, like you're saying. There's a few little things in flooring that will pop out. You've already mentioned luminescence and burls, and people look for certain anomalies in the wood, even rotted portions of the tree. Spalted, right? Is that where we're getting the blacks and the whites and the mixed colors?
Yeah, spalted is it's basically the effect of a fungus that gets into the tree and the sugar line of the tree. And now there are people who are really dedicating themselves to learning how to artificially create it or to stimulate it and do it in certain ways. So you don't have the range of spoiled material or material that's too soft to be used as a wood floor. Yeah. But you have enough of that ebony tendriling to make it look interesting.
When you look at your connections with Pyne and Juell, some stuff came up in your pool here. As Daniel Antes?
Dan was a Terre Haute, Indiana boy.
Okay, yeah.
So, I kind of knew him by being in a relationship with a woman who was his next door neighbor, and he was the same age as her son. And so I've known him since he was a teenager. Yeah. And he's an incredibly intelligent guy, and a very talented designer.
So everybody should watch out for more floors of the years from your gene pool. You're the Bill Belichick of flooring. You got a few guys, got a few rings behind you, and a few coaches on their way. You've also written and contributed for several magazines and articles like Wood Floor Business we've talked about. And I went back to an article that you wrote in 2011. It really gave me an education. I think tell a lot of people where your head is at when you tackle a floor and what you think about it. So I'm going to throw these at you and you explain them to me. The first
email that to me. Email me a link so I can put that on
you're going to, don't worry, I took notes. You're good. Rule number 1, space and mood. Floors should belong in the space they occupy. Where's your head at with that one? Well,
there are too many people who just throw a medallion in front of a door or in the middle of or lopsided in the middle of a hall, or there should be very careful planning on how you use what you're using in a decorative way, and basically always respect the geography of the room, whatever it is. That's why borders are so nice. Basically, you put a line, and that's usually the first thing that the guys learn how to do when they're doing more intricate installations. Is a straight laid floor, and you cut off a border 3 boards wide around the outside edge, and that really dresses up the place. Putting in a small feature strip really gives it a pop.
Yeah, I violated that rule my first time out of the gate. So we had a star that we bought. It was really pretty, and we installed it. And we should have asked the homeowner because it looked beautiful. And we're standing in the doorway, and his wife came in the other doorway and said, "We're not Jewish." It looked exactly like the Star of David coming in one door, and it just looked like a star coming in the other door. I'm like, wow, we really should have laid that out there for them first. And I had somebody have me put a compass in their lake house, and I was so proud of myself. I brought in a compass, and I laid out the compass, and I did it. And I walked in, he goes, "Hey, that little pointy part with the end," he goes, "aim it at the lake." I go, "That's like southwest." He goes, "Yeah, but it looks prettier." Well, why are we putting a compass in? So you're right. Get a look at the space. Where the,
Yeah.
Your second note was focus on the virtual center. What is the virtual center of a space when you're setting a floor up?
Well, it's not necessarily dead center. If the builder put the picture window in front of you off by 6 inches, then you better hit the middle of that. You better hit the middle of that picture window. So you make the builder the hero, because if not, you're going to be the goat.
Yeah. You make them commit to that first. Do you listen, this is the virtual center. This is the vantage point. I want you to sign off on this.
Yeah. Walk around, look at the space, get a feel for it. You can't look at both sides of the room at once. So
no. Your third rule, utility. And you wrote form follows function, complement the flow of traffic, and then enhance the aesthetic. Give me that one. That's fascinating.
Well, form follows function was Frank Lloyd Wright's big thing. And so it strikes me that, wood floors, although we do it all the time, are a bit problematic in kitchens and bathrooms, especially bathrooms. So, if you're encouraging the homeowner to spend, money and their budget's very, very limited, then put the wood floor in the entryway and the living room and the dining room and forget about the kitchen,
Right.
Yeah. So it's a big challenge.
Because it still has to be used as a floor.
Yeah. And, I like following the flow of traffic with the layout of design elements, whether it's a straight laid floor, or a floor with a pattern in it. Following the natural flow of traffic and working with the furniture plan that's there can be challenging, but always pays off.
Sure. Number 4, you put in symmetry. It's explaining the symmetry and the balance in a flooring design. What are you looking at for symmetry when you're looking at an intricate design?
Well, I'm inclined to be extremely symmetrical. So I always like working from the center out to both sides, and checking up on what the architectural elements are. If there's a transition that goes between two rooms, if there are columns or other significant architectural detail that need to be complemented. If someone's got a medium brown wall paneling system on one end, probably not want to give them a bright red Jatoba floor.
Right.
So just respect the balance and harmony of the space.
Your next setup you spoke about was boundaries. And I've done inlaid work and outer border designs, and this is a thing. When areas into hallways get cramped, you can pull a border that looked beautiful, and they want it through the hallway, and now it's 6 inches up the middle of away from each other. And you said borders can serve as a visual boundary for space and a bridge between open spaces. When you're looking for inlaid mosaics and borders and parquets, and what are you looking at for those particular boundaries? What are there things you shouldn't violate there?
Usually just the wall line is the important thing. And I think I've, grown over time to like smaller, less obtrusive borders than I liked at one point in time. So I think my sense of scale has evolved. I like things to be, very symmetrical. So if a herringbone has 5 courses going down the hallway, I always feel like I'm walking down the hallway like
Right.
this. It's got to have an even number of courses. So, that is something very important to me. And one of our second floor of the year floor had like an 80-foot long hallway that went into a radius, a curve, and shrank from 6 feet wide to 4 feet wide.
Okay.
So we had to basically cheat the border around the curve as we were making the curve in order to, in order to have a respectable size transition to the chevron that was going down the other part of that hallway. So that was a challenge.
You said it. I once did. We call them log cabin corners, herringbone corners, and go around the room and come to the fireplace and find the right-hand side, one board overlaps forward. On the other side, they overlap the inside. They don't match. You would think they do. It is. No. There's a system there. Do you just throw pencil to the floor? Or is it all in paper? I've had to say to people, wait, let me get a pencil and sketch little rosettes and corners so they can see what the heck we're talking about, or lay them down. Because some people cannot visualize what you visualize.
Well, I have an AutoCAD person that I work with who has learned to, learned my modus operandi over the course of the last few years. And so I can send her a sketch and say, make this such and such a size and this such and such a shape. And, she gets it. She can do it. Now, sometimes we go back and forth 20 or 30 times on the exact resolution, but that's the beauty of AutoCAD. You can do that fairly painlessly. It's that, I always hand draw stuff before I send it to her. Okay. So I still enjoy that, although physically it's a little more challenging now than it was 10 or 15 years ago. I still enjoy doing it. And that process helps me. A lot of times I'll have an idea and I'll throw it down on paper and I'm like, that just doesn't work. You gotta, you got to change it. We're this project that's been going on for 4 years now. The windows are offset in the room. They're a very powerful architectural feature. So the designer wants to line everything up to the center of those windows, and I really appreciate why he wants to do that. But in order to employ some grace with the rest of the room, they're putting a bar in, and there's an offset here and a jog there. In order to make it work and make it attractive, we're going to have to ignore that center line, or at least not point at it. We can do something where it's not that far off, so we can just shift something by a few inches, and no one will ever make the association that we're not hitting the center of that important architectural feature. On the other hand, there's a fireplace along one wall. And that's really the other tail that wags the dog. You have to respect those big and intruding, beautiful architectural features.
Well, they can push your border work or your feature work smack into the middle of the room, and it takes out your symmetry. It's
very rare that I do more than a 2-plank border in front of a fireplace, especially if we're using wider planks. It just doesn't work unless the room's enormous. So unless the fireplace is enormous, there's no justifying anymore.
You said in Rule 6, you were speaking about conventional applications. When talking parquetry and marquetry, consider the size of the design element because things can get busy. My favorite is your 7th rule was transcendental flooring, implementing genius in the art of breaking all the rules carefully and tastefully to invent a new art form. Give me that. That's my favorite one. Now we're talking.
What was I thinking?
It's genius.
Breaking all the rules. There are crazy things that can be done with wood floors. Curves, all kinds of very bold patterns. We recently did a king plank floor in Holland, Michigan, for a guy that owned a boatyard, and we made the floor look like the hull of a Chris Craft boat, or one of those boats that have a plank that goes down the middle with kind of a point and curves as it goes down the middle. So that was a real challenging floor.
Do you know in the design phase of it, this is going to take a while, and this is going to take some thought, and this is going to take some twists and turns? You know it's going to be complicated.
Yes, I can usually tell day one just how tough it's going to be. This was challenging, but part of the challenge in the actual installation was that the contractor had elected to finish his work before we got there. So yeah. We had baseboards and jams installed, and so there were some difficult things. That and this curved pattern meandered down a hallway and then terminated at the outside wall inside the powder room. Okay. So getting these curved pieces to fit under the jams and through the doorways, and basically it was very, very difficult.
Hey, Wood Floor Pros, this is Kim Walgren, the longtime editor of Wood Floor Business. I hope you're enjoying Steven's talk with wood flooring legend Chuck Crispin. We are featuring another one of Chuck's beautiful wood floors in the October-November 2022 issue of Wood Floor Business. If you don't get Wood Floor Business in your mailbox, make sure you sign up. Subscriptions are free to all qualified wood flooring pros in the U.S. and Canada. Just go to woodfloorbusiness.com and click on Magazine. If you're outside the U.S. and Canada, you can still sign up to get a digital subscription at no cost. That's it for now. Let's get back to our conversation with multi-award-winning wood floor pro Chuck Crispin.
I'm going to ask you a question. I read something from, is it Ethan Aberdeen, his builder, Broadleaf Flooring. Explain this one to me. Said, quote, I learned the quote, Chuck Crispin's not getting out of bed for that. Did you hear that? His builder goes, what do you think? And he goes, well, Chuck Crispin ain't even getting out of bed for that one. Look at that. Explain that to me. Look at you setting the bar. You're like a high jumper. Well,
Ethan and I have worked together on some projects. I really, really like Ethan, respect him. He's a great craftsman. And, one of the things that I've kept telling him is to, raise your price, man. You know how much work's going to be involved in that. You don't need to pay attention to what the other guy thinks it's worth. He's probably right. That's what his floor is worth. Sure. Yeah.
So, how do you price work like that? Everybody's got so much a foot, that much a foot, whatever that might be. How do you price for work like this? You must put a bid in. Are you even bidding against anybody, or are these jobs just yours?
Well, I don't want to do any more jobs that aren't just mine.
Right. See?
I went to a bid invitation in Chicago and walked in the door and saw floormen from 6 other companies and just said, you guys don't need my quote. I'm going to be 30% higher than these guys anyway. So, yeah, good luck, So I just turned around and walked out on that one. Yeah. I'm at that stage in my career where I don't want to do another project unless I design it and fabricate it and finish it and install it, or at least have my guys do the installation. So,
I have 3 of my favorites here. I've looked over a bunch of them. I'm going to give you my 3. Listen, again, podcast. Give me a little description of what you were working on here, because one of my top ones was the Louis XIV parquet. I think you did it in 2021. Was that in Michigan?
Yes.
Okay. Was that the one that was particularly supposed to be like a Versailles pattern?
Yeah, it was supposed to be an exact replication of the Versailles parquet, and it came very close. It was European cut. This owner preferred not to have the heavy characters, so not to have the big open nuts. He wanted a more refined look. But it's a beautiful floor. The original design was modified off another, off another home by the same builder in Holland, Michigan, which is where this owner was from. And so they had some pretty strong ideas going in. They let me persuade them to put Antoinette pattern parquet in the biggest room of the house, which was followed all of those 7 rules right there. Basically, you use a very large format parquet in a very large space, so it's appropriately sized, and that worked out really, really well. Then we used the Versailles parquet in the adjacent dining room, music room, library, and sculpture room. So we had 4 rooms for Versailles parquet, lots and lots of plank down the hallways, then big medallions at either end of the hallways, and a nice inlay in the crotch of the 3-story circular staircase.
I take it we're not talking a Michigan split level or ranch here. What's the square footage of a house like this? It's probably pretty big.
Yeah, this is like, the house was 45,000 square feet.
Wow.
36-foot ceilings in the great room of the house, 3-foot CNC routed carved casings from the ceiling down. It was just a magnificent stained glass window in the master foyer. Just extraordinary architectural features. The owner had been planning the house for 15 or 20 years, and he had storage for his acquisitions, so he used a lot of reclaimed European style furnishings, doors, etc., that he purchased through a dealer in Argentina. And he and his wife bought all of the light fixtures in Paris and had them sent over here and rewired, hundreds of years old. So lots and lots and lots of exceptionally fine touches. But I told the homeowner, the only thing that Louis XIV would really be jealous of, as the owner of the Palace of Versailles, is your floors.
There you go.
Yeah.
Throw it out there. One of the other ones, really different, cool looking floor. Jurassic Jazz 2014. Just tell the people what this thing looked like, and then we'll move on to something else. But the Jurassic Jazz floor, what was that? Well,
before we decided to have it published in the magazine, we called it the dinosaur puke floor. Right. But well, that's where the Jurassic comes from.
Yeah, you clean that one up a little bit.
But it is a very jazzy floor. We did another floor like that in Tulsa, Oklahoma, for an absolutely wonderful homeowner, and it's immaculate. It's in their sitting. It's in the sitting room that they watch baseball in. They're both the homeowners are both big baseball fans. They've got a chair shaped like Joe DiMaggio's mitt.
Wow.
And some very elegant Irios Saarinen contemporary furniture in there. So it's not the first thing that you would think of using in a ranch house in Tulsa, Oklahoma, but it matches the character of the owners, and it's not every day that you walk up onto somebody's very large front porch and see a Polynesian outrigger boat with.
Well, I'm looking at one page and I'm seeing, a European Renaissance or a Baroque kind of a design, and then I'm like, hey, dinosaur puke in the floor.
Dinosaur puke, yeah, ain't nothing like it. Yeah, that's mesquite burl. I've worked a lot with mesquite burl, and I really, really enjoy it. It's got such a depth of figure. It's fabulous. I like using it in parquets. Yeah, it's extraordinary wood, wonderful to work with. We do a lot of end grain stuff with it. The irregular shapes of the burls, it's very challenging to put that together. When we we had the basic layout, so we knew what the basic layout was going to be, and from laying the stuff down in the shop. And we put it in the truck and went down there, and I explained to Derek Marshall, the installer, that that he had 6 days to do this for. That was the budget, and so we laid out all of the big pieces all the way around, and got exactly the sort of flow and shift that we wanted. We had 5 specially cut pieces that we wanted to put right in the doorway. They were shaped like the 5 boroughs of New York, and Queens, of course, had a Yankees sign on it. So, that was kind of a great feature. So we placed that, we measured the vents and got all that stuff, going. And I left to go back and drive the boat. And Derek came home 6 weeks later. Oh, no. It took him that long to fill it in. So sometimes you can really, really lowball the amount of work that it's going to be. And in this case, we were fortunate with our, we asked the homeowner if they would increase our travel allowance and meet us halfway on the time. And they said they were happy to do it. They really appreciated Derek's meticulousness, and the end results were spectacular.
Sometimes you got to give up a little for your artistry, Chuck. You know that.
Sometimes you suffer for it.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, just one quick question. You mentioned vents. When there's heat vents and wood vents and things involved, does that throw you a curve in your artistic design, or you just say, listen, we're going to make these ourselves right here on the spot to go with you?
Yeah, we usually make our own. We've made our own vents since 2000. So usually we do that. I like the egg crate style vent, and that's what I use most frequently. And I can do that on my table saw, and it's not hard.
My 3rd floor, I'm going to help you out here because you do marketry, I do marketing. The Lake Placid, New York, 2019. And let me see if I get this right. So this really caught my eye. So if people know what end grain is, most people in the industry know what end grain is. You literally took the entire branch, tree, trunk, whatever it was, cut it right straight across the entire circular portion of the tree. And a lot of times with end grain, then they'll cut them squares so they'll look like bricks. This was the floor that you set and looked like a thin set or something, and took the trunks of a tree. Where did you get all that material to fill that floor with those wood? I mean, you can literally look at that floor and read the age of every piece of wood in the trees and branches that were in that floor.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. So we call them, we've taken to calling them tree cookies. So it's that floor in Lake Placid is a cookies and twigs floor. So the twigs fill all the little spaces, and then, and then you grout it. And so that's a pretty messy, labor-intensive operation. We've gotten good at it, but it always takes longer than you think it will. It always hurts more than you think it should.
I've got a couple moving from your flooring to just rifling through some career questions, and then just some quick fire questions, and I'll let you escape from me. But Kim Walgren, the editor of Wood Floor Business, she tells me that you think you might have missed your calling as an English professor. What's she talking about, and how'd you end up in flooring, if that's true?
I was a graduate student in the School of Humanities in Terre Haute, Indiana, and because I was an older returning graduate student, they asked me if I wanted to teach, and I'm like, sure. So they put me to work teaching freshman English for a couple of years. And that improved my grasp, having to teach it, improved my grasp on the language by leaps and bounds. I've always been a reader since I, was a kid. And so kind of learning techniques and teaching techniques for good composition, that was really good practice. That's what I was doing when I met Allan Pyne. By then, they had they had let me compose my own curriculum, and I was teaching. English lit classes at the local federal penitentiary and at the state penitentiary just up the road.
Just molding young minds.
Yeah. They're, a captive audience.
Absolutely.
And they paid twice as well as teaching the the ordinary kids. So,
well, if you can edit a few of my blogs, I'll help you out with some of this flooring stuff that you're fooling around with. We'll trade stuff off here.
Sounds like a deal.
Is it different to be working with the average consumer, or even in beautiful exotic homes, etc., than super high-end clients? Are you dealing more with the actual client? Or I know flooring I've done, there was always a concierge or there was a representative. If they were a pro athlete or somebody famous, I never met them. It was typically a design engineer or someone.
Yeah, we have clients like that who we've worked for 14 or 15 years who we have never met. And of course, they're someone whose name everyone knows, but they ask us not to speak about them.
Do you sign non-disclosures, or do they just ask you, please shush?
Yeah, they haven't asked us to sign non-disclosures, but the house managers let it be known that, you're to be very, very, very discreet and not publish pictures of their house online or anything like that, or at least to keep it anonymous if you do. So there are people's houses who we've never put up images of certain of our customers' homes, but usually people are pretty cooperative, and we meet most homeowners eventually. And in this case, the house in Chelsea, Michigan, we did not meet the homeowner until we showed up to do the finishing on the wood floor. Okay. The contractor very carefully kept us from having any social intercourse with the homeowner, but he turned out to be just a prince. He and his wife are just wonderful, wonderful people, very warm. They were very, very interested in the process of finalizing the detailing on the wood floor and putting finish on it, and basically very open-handed. It's like, do whatever you need to do, just make it look like $1 million.
Right, exactly.
So yeah, they were very interested in the process, and at the end of the day, very, very cooperative and great people. So.
Well, they say wisdom's wasted on the youth, right? I'm getting older myself. I wish I had certain chops when I was younger. You've been in the business a long time. Are there things that you would wish you had learned much earlier on in your career that caught up with you later on, whether it's in woodcrafting or even running a business?
There are things that I thought that I knew and was really, really good at, that I was completely completely self-deluded over. And I wish I'd paid more careful attention to my limitations earlier on, and found the right partner to hand over some of those responsibilities to, because running a business is one ugly lesson after another until you're dead. And the cards, if you operate a small business and have employees, the cards are so stacked against you succeeding by the laws that exist in this country, that it's very, very rare to see people who are excellent artistic craftsmen who are also wildly successful business people. The two skill sets don't seem to overlap much.
Absolutely. What's your work week or time frame? Are you part in the design and then physically out on the floor portion of it, or do you design everything and have crews do the floor? What are you doing?
I work with the same 15 or 20 people that I have worked with for the last 15 or 20 years. But they all work for themselves now. I don't own anybody.
There you go.
we're all working in a collaborative fashion, and when we're able to get together and do projects together, it's usually very enjoyable. I love working with Mark Scheller from Harrisburg, Pennsylvania. He's one of my best friends in the business, and a joy to work with because he's so conscientious and thorough and deliberate and very inventive about everything that he does. So very observant guy.
You don't sound like a guy that's going to be slowing down anytime soon. You're just going to hang with this forever, right?
I try to, like I have the perfect retirement plan.
Okay, what is that?
Work till you're dead.
Yeah. What a slacker. So, you don't think you can just go beyond that? You're just going to give up at death?
I try to walk 4 to 5 miles every day when it's not insanely hot out. I've switched my walking regimen to the evenings now because I'm starting to suffer from a lot of skin cancer things that kind of runs in my family. So having those basal cells cut off is getting to be annoying. So I'm doing less and less sunbathing these days, but trying to keep up the walking.
But when you're walking, you got to get one of those little umbrella hats that you put on your head.
Yeah. And I try to do Pilates twice a week. So I'm trying to stay in good enough shape that I can do the work if I want to do the work. But I'm also cultivating a new crew composed of an old employee that I haven't worked with for 15 years, but he's very talented and independent and, gets the job done. So I have great hopes for that. Half of our work is doing maintenance on floors that we've already done. So I'm intending to hand over more and more of that to younger people who are better suited to do it, and to stick with doing the design and in-shop fabrication stuff that I really enjoy.
I'm gonna let you roll, but I've got just some quick fire questions, and usually I just ask you, give me a quick answer, and then the bell rings and I let you go to recess. Let me throw these at you, and you answer them however you feel like. Are you ready to go?
Sure.
If you weren't in the industry, what would you be doing?
I don't know, probably Hollywood, something like that.
Yeah, you got a whole Tom Cruise vibe going.
Yeah, no, I would probably be a teacher.
Teacher.
I really enjoyed teaching.
From your resume, answer this for me. What is punky, quote, punky wood?
Punky wood, that's like with spalted maple. That's wood that is too soft to really use in a wood floor. It's decayed. It's decayed too far. Yeah.
In our industry, you have any favorite peers, colleagues, people that are just the people that you enjoy as your peer group in our industry?
So some of my favorite people: Mark Scheller, yep. Steve Seabaugh, Greg Schenk from Houston, Texas.
Anyone you haven't
dozens
met?
And dozens. Dan Antes, Walter Bastian.
Okay. Anyone you have not met?
Tom Urada. I would like to meet Tom.
I'm texting him right now.
He and I have just moved in different time zones. Basically, we peaked at different moments, but he's certainly peaking now, and I admire his creativity and his work. And we both like using, kind of the same similar palettes of materials. So it's fun. It's fun seeing what he comes up with. Yeah.
What's your favorite species of wood? Is there one that's deep in your heart?
I got to go with walnut, North American black walnut. Yeah. It's just gorgeous.
Any pet peeves, big pet peeves in flooring that really tick you off?
No, I'm over it.
Good. I thought you were going to say podcasts. I'm in a lot of trouble. Do you have a favorite tool of any kind? One that's, this is going in with you. It's going right in the ground. No one touches this tool. It better not leave me or my side. I see this is gone. What's your favorite tool?
I've got tons of pets, but probably the most useful thing that I just need in my pocket on every job is this little carving tool that has a triangular, has a triangular point, and it's just handy for scraping stuff, for removing tape, for getting under surfaces and lifting them up and doing that kind of stuff. So yeah, that's probably my favorite little go-to tool.
In that home that you're in, you have any carpet anywhere?
Well, unfortunately, this is my office, and yes, it is completely carpeted. And I don't have any say over that. I've been in this place too many years already, but if you want to talk again, I'll show you the downstairs and what scraping is, and we can look at this is I used to have 30,000 square feet of space. Now I have 2170 or something like that. So wow. Just a little over 2,000 square feet, and that's on 2 floors. And I've got all of this, the standard, stuff that you got to have, the table saws and scroll saws and planers and this and that, the other thing. So everything's on wheels. We shove everything around. We never have as much space as we need. Space is a problem.
Well, Sir Charles, it's been a pleasure meeting you. It's an honor meeting you. It's just the work that you do is super impressive. I want to thank you for being here with me and taking the time. And anytime I would love to speak with you. It's an honor and a pleasure.
All right. Well, have a great evening. And let me know if you would like to talk again.
Thank you, Chuck. We'll talk soon. Thank you very much. And keep on writing. Right. I love your stuff.
All right.
Might not be up there with mine, but maybe you could correct my English and stuff here and there. Hey, take care, Chuck.
Take care, Steve. Thanks.
If you'd like to see the projects Stephen and Chuck discussed, along with many other gorgeous installations by Chuck, just go to woodfloorbusiness.com and put Chuck Crispin, that's Crispin, in the search bar. And if you liked this podcast, please remember to leave a review and subscribe so you don't miss a single episode. Thanks for listening to All Things Wood Floor.